The first fight I ever got into with my husband was over a pork roast. My then boyfriend, now husband, was like, ooh, can I get a little bite off the endy? And I was like, no. The endy's the best, right? Like, does it get better than that? No. And I didn't share. Like, we almost broke up. Hey guys, it's Carla. I am here again in my kitchen for another episode of That Sounds So Good. Today I'm going to be making a hands-off pork and beans, which is this beautiful pork shoulder that gets roasted in a Dutch oven with black-eyed peas, and magically everything gets cooked perfectly at the same time, and the seasoning on the pork also flavors the beans. Maybe you have a bunch of people coming over for the holidays. This is a really easy way to get a big dinner on the table in kind of a long time, but not much of yours. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do when you get your pork home is to add the dry spices to it. I am not showing me adding the spices because the best possible thing that could happen before you start this dish is that you do that 12 hours, 1 day, 2 days in advance. So the spice mixture consists of Espelette pepper, which is from the Basque region of France, some cayenne, which is also a chili. This is a very chili forward spice rub. This is gonna deliver mostly heat. The Espelette pepper is more fruity and delicious, but it's not that spicy. And then also some hot smoked paprika. So you're getting like a spicy chili, a smoky chili, and a fruity chili, all ground, all combined, flavoring the pork. The other things that are going into this pot, my black-eyed peas, which have been soaking in water overnight. This is a measured amount of water, and then you use the entire amount for the braising liquid itself. Can she pour without splashing? We don't know. Yes, she can. What I like about black-eyed peas is that they're really easy to get. They're small, so they're gonna cook through in the amount of time that we want them to, and they hold their shape. They get really creamy, but the skins don't split. You don't get like where the inside comes outside. The recipe calls for thyme. I have some rosemary and oregano because I didn't have time, so that's going in. 1 onion cut through the root, some smashed garlic, and these cloves are gonna like fall apart, melt down, and then chopped carrot. Okay, so this is like the bean mixture, the pork mixture, they're gonna come together, but I am gonna season this bean water veggie situation with a tablespoon of salt. And so the method really falls somewhere in between a braise and a slow roast. The only thing to look for when you're putting the pork into the beans is you want it fatty side up, and that fat as it cooks is gonna kind of like drip down and render. The spices are gonna melt into the bean liquid. It's going to get flavored with the porky juices, the veggie essences, and this just gets nestled in there. It is totally fine if the top part of the pork is sticking out. And I'm just gonna get the party started with a little oil. The beans are just about at a simmer. The reason that I'm doing this is to get everything hot before going into the oven. If I put a cold pot of beans into a not that hot oven, it would add a lot to the cook time. So this is just jump starting everything and getting it going so that the total time is about 2.5 hours. So a few minutes to bring it up to a simmer, and then cover it and drop it into my 325 oven. That's it, bingo bango, 1 pot. All right, it's been about 2.5 hours. I want to check both the pork and the beans for doneness. So I'm just gonna pull it out of the oven. And at the same time, I'm going to crank the heat on the oven to 375, assuming everything here is looking good. So nice and steamy. You can see there's been a lot of action on the underside of the Dutch oven lid, but it's not burned. And even that the liquid level has come down a bit, even though it was covered, things evaporated and soaked in. So I want to check a bean. So what's nice about the black-eyed peas is like they stay intact, even though they've been braising for 2.5 hours. Very creamy, totally cooked through, no bitsy bits. So those are great. Just got some chopsticks here to poke around and see if we can pull off a little bit of pork without much resistance. Ooh, yum. Woo. Perfect little shreddy bite, looks super moist, came right off, but it's not falling apart. Porky, delicious. Great, okay, so the beans are done. The pork is super shreddy, falling aparty, but not completely. The only thing that hasn't happened with the pork that I want to see happen is some like crisping and browning, because it was in this moist environment. It didn't get that dry heat, kind of crackly delicious. And that's why the oven is cranked. Oh my God, it's falling apart. All right, so I'm just transferring it to this rimmed baking sheet. It's still fatty side up. So I want the pork to be on this rimmed baking sheet. You could use a little roasting pan, whatever has a little bit of a lip, because I'm putting this back in a higher heat oven, but I want it to have some moisture with it. I don't want the pan to burn. I don't want it to burn on the bottom. So I'm just gonna take some of this cooking liquid off the top, and these juices are gonna reduce and kind of get glazy. I just don't want them to, I don't want the liquid to burn, and I don't want the sheet pan to burn. The reason I'm pouring it over the top is because it's just awkward to go to the corners, and it feels like, why would I avoid it? It's just flavor and juiciness that's gonna drip down while it roasts. All right, that looks like a scant ½ inch to me. So this tray is gonna go back in the oven. We're up to 375, and while it's roasting, I'm gonna do some beautiful things with the beans. So the goal with the beans here, right now I have like a beautiful pot of brothy beans, but that's not really the texture that I want to be on a platter or passed around the table with the pork. So I'm gonna blend half of them. First, I gotta get these herbs out of the way. I'm definitely too lazy to like tie them in a little bundle before I start braising, but then the trade-off is you gotta do this after. And the herbs have seasoned the liquid. I just don't want to like blend up the stems. I'm gonna take about half of the beans and transfer them and get them really creamy. And so any vegetables that kind of come with and the liquid you want, but you don't have to get every carrot. It's okay to have some pieces of vegetables still in the pot after you're done. Okay, I can adjust this. I'm gonna add it back in. If I want it to be creamier, I'll just blend some more beans. But the goal is something that's like creamy, but has pieces of beans in it at the same time. Beans. She loves beans. And I'm pretty happy with the consistency. I wanna taste and adjust the seasoning. There was a ton of seasoning on the pork, so the salt and the spices have ended up in this gorgeous saucy liquid. Definitely taste the cayenne. I taste the smoky pimenton. It definitely needs more salt. Okay, getting better. More peps, more salt, and I'm also gonna add a few dashes of vinegar. It might seem like, what is vinegar doing in this dish? But weirdly, if you're adding salt to something and it's still not like tasting better, and like you add more salt and it still like doesn't really taste better, but it's tasting kind of salty, sometimes what's missing is the brightness. And when you add the vinegar, it's going to like bring out the salt. And that is just because those different flavors that you want to have on your palate, the sweet, salt, sour, bitter, and umami flavors. Like you want all of those things together, and they enhance each other like a boy band. The name of this boy band, sweet, sour, salt, that's a lot of S's. And then bitter and umami. So bus with 3 S's, like bussin'. Now it's delicious. Creamy pot of beans. There's some bean, there's creamy, there's thick, there's some veggies. It's very tasty. So all I need to do now is keep this warm until the pork is brown. Also, if you're going totally ahead of time, you could take the pork out, you could get your beans to the creamy bus this deliciousness. You could actually put the pork back in this mixture and hold it overnight. And tomorrow you could do the reheating and the browning. I'm going to take out the pork that's been roasting. I peeked at it. It's really brown and crispy and looks really good. You do want to wait until the pork is not screaming hot anymore to start slicing it, but I feel like we can get in there now. And another thing to look for before you start is to try to cut against the grain. It can be a little bit hard to see where the grain is going because the shoulder has like multiple muscles that kind of connect. So it might change direction, but I'm noticing over here that the grain seems to be going that way. So I'm just gonna angle my slices this way. It is also very possible that when I start slicing, the pork is so tender that it's gonna shred. And if that happens, just go with the shreds instead of the slices. We'll see. It could be a shred party, we don't know. Hang on to the juices that are on this sheet tray. I'm gonna keep the slices kind of happy over there, but I'll also pour that into the beans. As expected. Yeah, this is more of a shred party. Yum. So it is super tender, obviously. It's like falling apart when I press down with the knife, but it's also incredibly moist and juicy inside. The first fight I ever got into with my husband was over a pork roast at somebody else's house. And when that person was serving the pork roast, he gave me the end piece. I was so excited because the endy's the best. My then boyfriend, now husband, was like, ooh, can I get a little bite off the endy? And I was like, no. And I didn't share. And I had to write a written letter of contrition after that. Like we almost broke up. I guess either share the endy and avoid the fight or just let it go and choose endy over love. What would you do? All right, now we're gonna plate it up, starting with the beans, topped with the pork. And I think if the like pork and beans that you've had in your life has been like baked beans and like a really kind of sweet, salty kind of hot dog vibe, this is the spirit of that, but in a pork and beanie way that is just like smoky and peppery and savory and just really delicious. It's just a good combo. And it's more of a braise than a roast. I think you want to serve it in like a pasta bowl so you can catch all of those juices. Speaking of which, these are the concentrated juices that were sitting with the pork while it slow roasted. So I'm just gonna add those. I mean, if you want to avoid having that fight, maybe the endy is just something that happens with you in the kitchen alone while other people are lighting the candles and like opening the wine. And then like you just have your endy moment and not hurt anybody's feelings. I'll just set that aside for now. You can also do a sidecar because mostly what people are gonna take when the platter comes to them is gonna be a couple slices of the pork. And you can also pass extra beans at the table. This is just some extra oregano, just for some color. And it was in the dish. I've got a little extra espelette. Flaky salt. There she is. Hands off pork and beans. It is easy. It is abundant. It was a lot of inactive time. It is roasty and smoky and shreddy and delicious. I would put this around with a spoon and a fork for getting your slices and some of your delicious bean and braise. And then I figured it out. This is just the kitchen tester. And then when we're serving, I won't have any feelings about anything because I will have had these feelings. How can I possibly care for others if I haven't cared for myself? So do that for you too, and then do that for everybody else. There's a watercress salad with Dijon in the book. That would be an amazing accompaniment to have like either on the table or right after. Yum, it's really good. Franks and beans forever.